There are two people in this surveillance screen. One is a girl swinging around with a suitcase in her hand. The other is an ill-fated victim who has been dismembered and stuffed in a suitcase. At first glance, the girl appears to be innocent and quiet, but no one would have expected that she was only pretending to be quiet for fun. Late at night on May 27, 2023, in South Korea, the police received a distress call. The caller was a taxi driver who had just picked up a suspicious woman. Not only did she get off at a suspicious location near the forest by the Lodo River, but she was also dragging a suitcase that was oozing blood. Imagine this scene: a woman walking alone in the middle of the night with a bloody suitcase. It's undoubtedly very eerie. So the police immediately drove to the location mentioned by the taxi driver. After a while of searching, as expected, they quickly found several spots with scattered branches. There was no doubt that the forest by the Lodo River had become the dumping ground for the woman. However, what puzzled them was why the woman chose such an open and obvious method. After all, friends who often dispose of bodies know that they either choose a place without surveillance or discreetly dispose of the body parts in garbage bags. Who would be as extravagant as this girl, strolling on the streets and taking a taxi? So the police immediately launched an investigation into the woman. However, they were in for a shock when they started digging. After all, South Korea is a small country with a small population, and the police quickly discovered the woman's identity. Her name was Jeong Yoo Jeong, only 23 years old. If you only looked at her photos, it would be hard to imagine that such a girl could commit such a heinous crime. But the fact was right in front of them, forcing them to believe. So the police conducted a background check on her to find out the motive behind her actions. And through the investigation, they discovered something even more difficult to comprehend. Jeong Yoo Jeong grew up in Busan. Because her parents were busy with work, she was raised by her grandparents. As a result, she didn't have many friends from a young age, and her personality was quite introverted. She liked to be alone, lost in her own thoughts. However, this personality didn't improve even after she graduated. So after graduating from university, she struggled to fit into society and decided to aim for a civil service exam. But it seemed like she couldn't handle that path either, as she failed the exam for 5 years straight. During this time, the only thing she used to pass the time was watching TV and movies, especially those related to murder cases. On May 24, 2023, after failing multiple exams, she installed a study app and contacted an English tutor under the pretense of finding a tutor. After communicating and talking for a while, the two agreed to have a tutoring session on the 27th to see how effective it would be. Little did the English tutor know that this seemingly harmless girl would lead her into hell. She first stabbed the teacher to death and then cut him into many pieces. Afterwards, she acted as if nothing had happened, dragging the teacher in a suitcase and happily walking down the street. She believed that as long as no one discovered her, she could become a real teacher. However, she did not know that the taxi driver would report her, and the next day, she was arrested. Her name was Jeong Yoo Jeong, a seemingly quiet girl at first glance. What was terrifying was that her phone had never stored any contacts. Even more terrifying was that in the months leading up to the incident, the keywords she searched on her phone were about how to dispose of a body and how to commit the perfect crime. However, when faced with police interrogation, she claimed that someone had forced her to do it. If she didn't follow that person's instructions, her life would be in danger. But the police were not naive enough to believe her words based on her testimony alone. Therefore, her statement was naturally useless. So not long after, under the influence of a powerful memory recovery technique, she admitted to her crimes. She said she didn't know what was happening. There was always a voice in her head telling her to try killing someone and see how it felt. At first, she didn't think much of it, perhaps because she had seen too many murder cases recently, but as time went on, the voice in her head grew louder, and her inner curiosity became stronger. When the police heard her say this, they wondered if she had a mental illness or some kind of psychological disorder. But when the test results came out, even the police were shocked. After all, a quiet girl with no criminal record or any mental illness had chosen to kill out of curiosity. The fact was right in front of them, and no one could deny it. However, there were still some people who believed that Jeong Yoo Jeong harmed the teacher because of her desire to be a teacher herself. After all, she had been studying for so many years without success, and the only teaching certificates left behind were the ones she kept. But there were also some people who believed that it was the influence of those murder movies that caused this. She had become obsessed with them and wanted to personally experience a perfect crime. After all, if she killed out of curiosity, why would she go as far as dismembering the body? But regardless of the speculations, there was no substantial evidence to prove why she did it. Therefore, we can only believe that she did it out of curiosity, to experience the feeling of killing. Now, her trial verdict has not been announced yet, and South Korea has not executed the death penalty for a long time. Therefore, the maximum punishment she could receive is a lifetime imprisonment,